The process server's hand shook slightly as he handed my parents the foreclosure documents. Maybe he could sense this wasn't a typical bank seizure. Maybe he saw my mother's face crumble as she recognized my name on the paperwork. Or maybe he just wanted to get away from the toxic atmosphere that had poisoned that house long before I decided to reclaim what was mine. "Your sister needs it more," Dad had announced 3 years earlier, sliding my college tuition check across the kitchen table to my sister Amber. "You're smart, you'll figure something out." I stared at that check, $67,000, for years of savings bonds, birthday money, summer job earnings, and their supposed contributions, as it disappeared into Amber's perfectly manicured hands. "But classes start in 2 weeks," I said, my acceptance letter to Northwestern still pinned to the refrigerator behind him. "Pre-med, full course load. Everything planned down to which dorm room I'd requested." "Amber's having a baby," Mom said, as if I hadn't noticed my sister's strategic pregnancy announcement the day after I'd gotten my acceptance letter. "Babies are expensive. So is medical school," I countered. "You'll get loans," Dad said dismissively. "Scholarships. You're smart, like I said. Amber needs this now. Today. Real life. Real life." As if my dreams of becoming a doctor weren't real. As if the past 4 years of straight A's, volunteer work, and MCAT prep were just a hobby. Amber sat there, one hand on her barely showing belly, the other already planning how to spend my future. "Thanks, Daddy," she cooed. "Blake and I are so grateful. We'll name the baby after you if it's a boy." Blake, her boyfriend of 6 months who worked part-time at a vape shop and whose greatest ambition was reaching level 80 in some online game. The father of this conveniently timed miracle. "What about the paperwork?" I asked desperately. "The bursar's office needs." "Figure it out," Dad repeated, already turning away. "Your sister's doctor appointment is in an hour. We need to go." I sat alone in that kitchen, staring at the indent on the table where my check had been, while my family bustled around preparing for Amber's appointment. The same parents who'd made me get a job at 14 to learn responsibility were now handing my college fund to my 23-year-old sister who'd never worked a day in her life. "You understand, right?" Mom paused at the door. "Family helps family." "I'm family too," I whispered. "You'll be fine," she said, and then they were gone. I spent the next 48 hours scrambling. The financial aid office laughed when they saw my parents' income. Too high for need-based aid, even though they'd just given away my tuition. Private loans required cosigners. Scholarships were already distributed. Northwestern gave me exactly 1 week to figure it out before they released my spot to someone on the wait list. That's when I remembered the house. 5 years earlier, when my parents bought their dream home, they'd needed a cosigner to qualify for the mortgage. Dad's credit was shot from a failed business venture. Mom's income alone wasn't enough. But I had just turned 18, had perfect credit from the card they'd helped me get at 16 to learn responsibility, and had a part-time job. "It's just a formality," Dad had assured me. "We'll never miss a payment. You're just helping us get approved." I'd signed. Of course I'd signed. I was 18 and they were my parents and family helps family, right? Now, sitting in my childhood room surrounded by college brochures and medical school prep books, I pulled out that mortgage paperwork I'd kept in my files. Cosigner. Equal responsibility. Equal rights. "You're smart," I said to myself in the mirror. "Figure it out." And I did. I deferred my admission to Northwestern. Told them there was a family emergency, which wasn't really a lie. Then I did what my parents had always preached but never practiced. I got to work. 3 jobs. Morning shift at a medical clinic as a receptionist. Evening tutoring high school kids in math and science. Weekends at a restaurant where the tips were good if you could handle the handsy customers and screaming chefs. I moved into a studio apartment with 3 roommates, slept on a futon in the corner, and saved every single penny. But I wasn't just saving. I was learning. My day job at the medical clinic came with an unexpected perk. The office manager, Linda, had worked in medical billing for 20 years and took a liking to me. She taught me about insurance, billing codes, and most importantly, medical debt. "You want to know the real money in healthcare?" she said one day over lunch. "It's not in treating patients. It's in owning the debt." She introduced me to her nephew Marcus, who worked for a company that bought medical debt for pennies on the dollar. Turned out, there was a whole industry built on purchasing distressed debt and collecting on it. "Including mortgages?" I'd ask casually. "Especially mortgages," Marcus had grinned. "But that takes real capital. Capital I didn't have." Yet, meanwhile, Amber's pregnancy progressed along with her spending. My college fund evaporated into a nursery that looked like a Pinterest board exploded. Designer crib, $1,000 stroller, professional maternity photos that cost more than a semester of textbooks. Look at your nephew. Mom would text me photos of ultrasounds, as if I should be excited about the baby who stole my future. I didn't respond. I was too busy working. The restaurant manager promoted me to shift supervisor. Linda taught me to code medical procedures for extra money. My tutoring clients recommended me to their friends. Dollar by dollar, 12-hour day by 12-hour day, my bank account grew. But not fast enough. Even with 3 jobs, it would take me years to save enough for medical school. Years I didn't have. Years that would put me behind every other pre-med student who didn't have their future stolen by a manipulative sister and enabling parents. That's when I met David Chun. David was a regular at the restaurant, a quiet guy who always tipped well and brought medical journals to read over dinner. Turned out he was a resident at the hospital, crushing himself under student loans that made my eyes water. $320,000, he told me one night when I asked. That's just for medical school. Undergrad was another $80,000. How do you even pay that back? You don't, he laughed bitterly. You just hope you die before the interest doubles it. But David knew things. Knew which specialties paid enough to actually tackle debt. Knew which hospitals offered loan forgiveness. And most importantly, knew lawyers who specialized in creative financial solutions. You need to talk to my friend Janet, he said after I'd vented about my situation. She handles medical professionals' finances. Does some interesting things with debt structuring. Janet Wolverton looked like a kindergarten teacher, but had the financial instincts of a shark. Her office walls were covered with medical degrees from clients she'd helped through alternative funding solutions. So your parents took your college fund, she summarized after I'd explained. Gave it to your sister. But you're on their mortgage. As a co-signer, yes. She smiled like a cat who'd spotted a limping mouse. Not just a co-signer. Co-borrower. Big difference. You're equally responsible for that debt, which means you have equal rights to the asset. But they make the payments. Do they? She pulled up something on her computer. Public records show they've been late 6 times in the past 2 years. Never enough to trigger foreclosure, but enough to establish a pattern of unreliability. My heart started racing. What are you saying? I'm saying that as co-borrower, you have the right to protect your credit by assuming full control of the loan if the other borrowers demonstrate inability to maintain it properly. Especially if you can prove financial hardship caused by the other borrower's actions. You mean? I mean your parents gave away money that could have prevented you from taking on educational debt, thereby damaging your financial future, while simultaneously demonstrating poor financial judgment with their mortgage payments. Any decent lawyer could argue you're entitled to protect your interests. But I can't afford to take over their mortgage payments. Janet's smile widened. You don't have to. You just have to make them think you will. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. First, I had to establish standing. Every late payment my parents made was documented. Every financial decision that prioritized Amber was recorded. The college fund transfer was particularly damning. They'd literally given away money while failing to maintain their mortgage obligations. Next came the groundwork. I hired Janet officially, putting every dollar I'd saved into her retainer. She filed the initial paperwork quietly, establishing my claim as co-borrower seeking to protect my interests. Then we waited. Amber had her baby, a girl, despite promising to name it after Dad. The social media explosion was immediate. Professional newborn photos. Designer nursery reveals. Mom posting about being a glamma, while wearing jewelry I knew they couldn't afford. Your turn next. Mom texted me with a string of baby emojis. Give me more grandbabies. Can't afford kids, I replied. Someone stole my college fund. She stopped texting after that. The process server arrived at their door exactly 3 years and 2 days after they'd handed my future to Amber. I knew because I was parked across the street, watching. Not out of cruelty, but because I needed to see their faces when they realized their smart daughter had indeed figured something out. Dad came to the door first, probably expecting a package. His expression when he read the papers was priceless. Confusion, disbelief, then recognition as he saw my name. What is this? I could hear him screaming from inside my car. Mom appeared, snatched the papers, went pale. My phone exploded within minutes. What have you done? Dad's text was all caps. Figured it out, I replied. This is illegal. Actually, it's completely legal. I'm the co-borrower. You've been delinquent multiple times. I'm protecting my investment. Your investment? This is our house. Our house, I corrected. My name's on the deed too, remember? You needed my credit. The call started then. First Dad, screaming about lawyers and family loyalty and how could I do this. Then Mom, crying about stress and the baby and didn't I care about my niece? I didn't answer any of them. Amber showed up at my apartment that night, baby in tow, trying to use her daughter as a battering ram for my conscience. How can you make us homeless? She wailed, strategically bouncing the baby to make her cry. She's just a baby. You're not homeless, I said calmly. The foreclosure process takes months. Plenty of time to figure something out. You're smart, right? That's what Dad always says. This is because of the money, isn't it? She shifted tactics. I'll pay you back. With what? Blake's vape shop salary. Her face hardened. I needed that money. I was pregnant, and I needed it for medical school. Which one of us planned their expenses? You're jealous, she screamed, baby now wailing. You've always been jealous that I'm prettier, that Mom and Dad love me more. They do love you more, I agreed. They loved you $67,000 worth more. Plus interest. Now get off my property before I call security. She left, but not before letting her baby have a massive diaper blowout in my hallway. Family love at its finest. The legal process moved faster than expected. My parents hired a lawyer. With what money, I don't know, but Janet was better. Every document supported our case. The pattern of financial irresponsibility. The emotional distress of losing my education funding. The fact that I'd been paying rent while they'd been missing mortgage payments. They can fight it, Janet told me, but they'll lose. And it'll cost them more than just walking away. The meeting happened at Janet's office. My parents looked older, grayer, smaller somehow. Amber wasn't there, probably couldn't find a babysitter. How could you? Mom whispered. How could I protect my credit? How could I secure my future? How could I expect equal treatment as your daughter? I kept my voice level. I don't know, Mom. How could I? We'll pay you back, Dad said desperately. The college money. We'll pay it back. With what? You can't even pay your mortgage on time. We had expenses. The baby has a fully furnished nursery worth more than a semester at Northwestern. Don't blame the baby for your choices. Janet interrupted smoothly. My client is prepared to offer a solution. You can avoid foreclosure and keep your home. Hope flickered in their eyes. She'll assume the mortgage entirely, Janet continued. You'll quitclaim the deed to her. In exchange, she won't pursue damages for the educational funds that were converted or the credit damage from your payment history. Give her our house? Dad's voice cracked. Give me my house, I corrected. The one my credit bought. The one I'm paying for. The one you'll lose anyway when you can't afford the lawyers to fight this. We raised you. Mom burst out. We fed you, clothed you, loved you. The first two were your legal obligation. The third is debatable. I stood. You have a week to decide. After that, we proceed with foreclosure. They signed, of course. What choice did they have? Fight a losing battle with money they didn't have? Destroy their credit completely? At least this way, they walked away clean. I took possession on a Thursday. The house was messier than I remembered. Proof that Amber had been living there too with Blake and the baby. Her old room was the nursery now, filled with the furniture my future had purchased. I donated it all to a women's shelter. They were grateful. I was lighter. My parents moved in with my aunt 2 states away. Amber, Blake, and the baby got a 2-bedroom apartment on the side of town where people put cars on blocks and police sirens were background music. I hope you're happy, Amber texted me. You've ruined our lives. No, I replied. I just stopped letting you ruin mine. I sold the house 3 months later. Market had gone up. Between the equity and my savings, I had enough for Northwestern. Not the full ride I'd planned. I'd still need loans, but enough to start. Linda wrote me a recommendation letter. So did David. Janet offered me a job for after graduation. Medical professionals who understand finance are rare, she said. Think about it. I did think about it. Sitting in my dorm room, finally at 22, where I should have been at 18, I thought about a lot of things. How family could be a weapon. How love could be conditional. How being smart meant more than just good grades. My roommate was 19, fresh out of high school, complaining about her parents texting too much. I envied her problems. You okay? She asked, seeing my face. Yeah, I said, pulling out my anatomy textbook. Just figured something out. What's that? I thought about my parents, probably sharing a pull-out couch at my aunt's. About Amber working her first job ever at a grocery store. About the baby who'd never know her aunt because her parents had chosen greed over family. That being smart isn't about figuring things out, I said finally. It's about choosing which things are worth figuring out in the first place. She nodded like that made sense and went back to her phone. But I sat there, textbook open, thinking about the long road ahead. Medical school, residency, loans. All of it harder because of 3 years lost, 3 years stolen. But I'd figured it out, just like Dad said I would. The difference was when I told them they were smart enough to figure things out too, I actually meant it. They had each other. They had Amber. They had their granddaughter. Surely that was worth more than a house or a college fund. Time would tell if they were smart enough to figure that out. As for me, I had my future back. Delayed, scarred, fought for, but mine. And nobody, family or otherwise, would ever take it from me again. I turned to chapter 1 of my anatomy textbook. The heart. Ironic place to start, considering mine had been broken and rebuilt so many times. But that's what made me perfect for medicine. I understood that healing required cutting away disease, even when that disease called itself family. Especially then. Family helps family, I whispered to myself, highlighting the first paragraph. They were right about that part. They just never specified that sometimes the family you need to help is yourself. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay stunned.